Hey guys, you might notice the new overlay, and I want your guys' opinions on it. Do you think it looks good? Do you think there's anything I should change? I'm already planning on shrinking some of the text, but let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your feedback. With all that said, let's get straight into the gameplay. This week, Ryan is piloting Thrasios Jeska, a EDH rec pile that wins through Worldfire. He opened with a Freed from the Real, Survival, Dockside Extortionist, Ragavan, Training Center, Felwar Stone, and Flooded Strand. This week, Ron is piloting a returning deck, Mangara. He opened with 3 snow-covered plains, Emeria the Sky Ruins, a Blind Obedience, a Pearl Medallion, and Skyclave Apparition. This week, Nash is piloting Emil, a Flicker-based value deck. He opened with a Survival of the Fittest, Nature's Claim, Nature's Lore, Landmore Elves, Misty Rainforest, Marsh Flats, and a Forest. This week, Jordan is piloting Crom Arden, a Jeskai Voltron deck. He opened with Blackblade, Sensei's Divining Top, Arid Mesa, Stoneforge Mystic, Mystic Remora, and a Talisman. Ryan won the die roll and starts things off. He opens with a Misty Rainforest, cracking it to get a Taiga, and then immediately casting Ragavan. He then passes the turn. On Ron's turn, he starts things off with a tapped Emeria the Sky Runes, and passes the turn. On Nash's turn, he plays and cracks his Misty in order to get Temple Garden and cast Llanowar Elves. Jordan starts his turn off with his Arid Mesa. He then uses it in order to get a Hollow Fountain into play untapped. He uses the Hollow Fountain in order to cast his Mana Vault, which he then taps down in order to cast his Talisman of Conviction and his Sensei's Divining Top. On Ryan's turn, he starts things off by swinging with Ragavan at Jordan, hitting his Path to Exile, and creating a treasure. Ryan then plays his Flooded Strand as land for turn, and cracks it for a Breeding Pool untapped. He then uses all 3 of his available mana in order to cast Oko, Thief of Crowns. He then upticks Oko, making a food, and passes the turn. On Ron's turn, he plays and cracks his Flooded Strand in order to get a Snow-Covered Plains into play. He then taps out in order to cast his Blind Obedience. Nash starts his turn off by playing a Marsh Flats, which he cracks to get a Plains. He then casts a Nature's Lore, putting a Canopy Vista into play tap. On EOT, Jordan uses Top to look at the top 3 cards of his deck. He then moves to his turn, chooses not to untap the Mana Vault, taking 1, and casts a Mystic Remora. Ryan starts his turn off with a Training Center. He then follows this up by attacking with Ragavan, creating a treasure and exiling Jordan's top card. He then uses Oko to make a food. He then finishes his turn off by casting Survival of the Fittest. On Ron's turn, he plays a Snow-Covered Plains, and follows this up by casting Pearl Medallion, extorting it. On Nash's turn, he plays and cracks a Verdant Catacomb, getting a basic forest into play. He then uses this forest in order to cast Survival of the Fittest. On Jordan's upkeep, he decides to pay the Remora. He does not pay for the Mana Vault, and takes 1 damage. He moves to main phase, plays a Rogue's Passage, and then casts Stoneforge Mystic, getting Sunforger to hand. On EOT, Ryan uses his Survival in order to get a Bloom Tender to hand. On Ryan's turn, he uses Bloodstained Mire in order to go get his Volcanic Island. He then casts Thrasios, followed by Bloom Tender. He then moves to combat and attacks Ron for 2 with Ragavan, making a treasure and exiling the top card of his deck, which is a Path to Exile. He then upticks Oko, making more food. On Ron's turn, he plays a Snow-Covered Plains, and then casts his commander, extorting it. On EOT, Nash uses his Survival in order to get Recruiter the Guard to hand. On EOT, Nash activates his Survival of the Fittest in order to discard his Wall of Omens and get a Recruiter of the Guard to hand. On Nash's turn, he plays a Forest, casts Recruiter of the Guard, and then gets Timeless Witness to hand. On Jordan's turn, he lets the Mystic Remora die. He then uses Sensei's Divining Top before draw step. Then on main phase, he plays a Spectator seeding his land for turn and passes. On Ryan's turn, he plays Freed from the Real, enchanting his Bloom Tender. He then demonstrates an Infinite. Nash responds by on the first untap attempting to Nature's Claim the Freed from the Real, but Ryan responds by floating a blue mana with one of his lands and continuing to make infinite mana. Then the stack resolves. Ryan uses Thrasios to draw his entire deck, and then he casts Worldfire. He proceeds to cast Jeska, which he uses the -X to ping every player to death.